Dolly Parton's funeral plans have brought a deeply emotional response from fans, as flowers, candles, handwritten messages, and personal tributes began appearing at places connected to the country music legend, turning the first days after her passing into a powerful nationwide memorial. At 80 years old, Dolly had become so deeply woven into American music and culture that news of her death immediately felt personal to millions of people who had grown up with her songs, her voice, her humor, and her unmistakable personality. Now, as fans gather to say goodbye, the scenes unfolding across Tennessee and beyond are showing just how enormous her impact really was. In Los Angeles, flowers and heartfelt messages began appearing around Dolly's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, with fans and media gathering along Hollywood Boulevard to honor her memory. It was a striking sight because this was not simply a memorial for a famous singer. It was a gathering around a place where Dolly's name had become permanently connected to the entertainment history of the city. People stopped to leave flowers, reflect, and remember the music that had followed them through different stages of their lives. Passing cars could be heard playing some of Dolly's best-known songs, creating an emotional connection between the busy streets of Los Angeles and the woman whose music had reached far beyond the country music world. The sounds of her songs in the background carried a significance that words alone could not capture. For generations of listeners, Dolly was never just a celebrity whose career could be measured in records, awards, or performances. She was a familiar voice. Her songs became part of family memories, personal milestones, difficult moments, celebrations, and ordinary days. So when fans gathered around her star, many were not simply mourning an entertainer. They were saying goodbye to someone whose work had been part of their lives for years. But the memorials were not limited to Los Angeles. In Nashville, where Dolly's connection to country music history was especially strong, fans gathered at the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum to honor the life and legacy of their hometown icon. Visitors signed a memorial book placed near Dolly's plaque inside the Hall of Fame rotunda, leaving messages filled with gratitude, memories, and admiration for what she accomplished over more than 6 decades. Some visitors said they planned to return with flowers and additional tributes, showing that the memorial was not expected to be a single moment of grief. For many fans, it was the beginning of a longer process of remembering a person whose influence had become part of Nashville itself. Dolly had been inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 1999, but her relationship with country music had started decades earlier. She rose from humble beginnings to become one of the most recognizable entertainers in the world, and along the way she created songs that eventually became larger than any single generation. Jolene, 9 to 5, and I Will Always Love You are not simply famous titles. They are songs that have continued to be discovered, performed, remembered, and passed from one generation to another. Each one represents a different part of Dolly's extraordinary ability to turn human emotions and everyday experiences into music that could reach millions. That is why the tributes now feel so personal. When fans leave a flower or light a candle, they are often saying goodbye to a soundtrack from their own lives. Nashville's Country Music Hall of Fame has become an especially meaningful place for that kind of remembrance. The museum's current exhibition, Dolly Parton, Journey of a Seeker, already tells the story of her remarkable journey, including the obstacles she overcame on her way to becoming one of the world's most beloved entertainers. But following the news of her passing, the exhibition took on an entirely different emotional meaning. A framed message was placed beside the guest book, inviting visitors to share their memories and condolences, with those messages ultimately intended for Dolly's family. Imagine what that guest book represents. Page after page filled with the words of people who may never have met Dolly personally, yet still feel that they lost someone important. That is one of the strange and powerful things about a legendary artist. A person can never meet millions of their fans, but through music, stories, interviews, performances, and acts of kindness, they can still become part of those people's lives. Dolly had that rare ability. Her public personality made people feel as though they knew her, even when their only connection was through a song or a television appearance. And now, after her death, those invisible connections are becoming visible through flowers, candles, notes, and memories. Elsewhere in Tennessee, fans gathered outside Dolly's home in Brentwood, leaving bouquets and handwritten messages at the gates of her residence. Some also left candles, creating a quiet and deeply personal memorial outside a place that represented Dolly's private life rather than her public career. There is something particularly emotional about seeing tributes placed outside a home. A concert venue belongs to the performer. A museum belongs to history. But a home represents the person behind everything else. Fans standing outside the gates were not simply honoring the superstar. They were acknowledging the woman whose life had touched them from a distance. They came because they wanted to leave something behind, even if it was only a flower, a few words, or a quiet moment of reflection. And perhaps that is why these simple tributes can feel more powerful than elaborate ceremonies. A handwritten message does not need to be perfect. A bouquet does not need to be expensive. A candle does not need to burn for very long. The meaning comes from the fact that someone cared enough to stop and say goodbye. As these tributes continued appearing, attention also turned toward Dolly's funeral plans. According to the reference material, Dolly's family announced plans for a small private funeral service attended by immediate family members, in accordance with her wishes. That decision means that the public will not necessarily witness the kind of enormous celebrity funeral that might normally be expected for someone of Dolly's stature. There may not be a massive public ceremony filled with thousands of people or a citywide event surrounding her final farewell. Instead, the most intimate part of her goodbye will remain within the family. And that choice carries its own meaning. Dolly spent much of her life in front of the public, but she also understood the value of privacy. Her family has indicated that the funeral will remain small, allowing those closest to her to say goodbye away from the enormous attention that has surrounded her career. She is expected to be laid to rest beside her late husband, Carl Dean, in the mausoleum at Woodlawn Memorial Park and Mausoleum in Nashville, Tennessee. For fans, the knowledge that Dolly will rest beside Carl adds another emotional dimension to the farewell. Their relationship had been one of the most enduring private parts of Dolly's life, even as her public career grew to extraordinary heights. Dolly may have belonged to the world through her music, but her personal life always remained something she carefully protected. Now, in the place where she will eventually be laid to rest, the final chapter of that private life becomes part of the story fans are remembering. Yet there is an important detail in the family's message that may say even more about Dolly than any funeral ceremony could. Fans and admirers have been asked to consider making donations to Dolly Parton's Imagination Library in her memory instead of sending flowers. That request is incredibly fitting because the Imagination Library was one of Dolly's most meaningful accomplishments outside music. She created the program to provide books to young children, inspired in part by her father's own difficulty with reading. What began as a deeply personal mission became a worldwide effort that gave children access to books and encouraged them to develop a love of reading. In that sense, the family's request turns mourning into action. Instead of allowing flowers to simply fade away, supporters can contribute to something that continues the work Dolly cared about. It creates a living memorial rather than one that exists only for a few days. Every book sent to a child becomes another reminder of what Dolly believed was possible when people are given the opportunity to learn and dream. That may ultimately be one of the most fitting ways to honor her. Dolly's legacy was never only about the songs she recorded. It was about what she did with the success those songs gave her. She could have spent her entire life focused on entertainment, but she repeatedly used her platform to help others. The Imagination Library became one of the clearest examples of that philosophy. And now, as fans grieve, they have an opportunity to keep that part of her legacy moving forward. The flowers and candles outside her home and around her star are beautiful symbols of love, but a donation to the causes she championed can become something more lasting. That distinction is important because Dolly's influence has always been about more than remembering her. It has been about continuing the spirit behind what she did. This is also why the scenes unfolding in Nashville are so emotional. Country music is filled with legendary performers, but Dolly occupied a unique position within the genre. She represented where country music came from while also helping it reach audiences around the world. She could write a deeply personal song, perform it with incredible emotional honesty, and somehow make listeners feel as though she was telling their own story. Her music could be heartbreaking, funny, romantic, hopeful, or reflective, sometimes within the same career and sometimes within the same album. That range helped explain why her audience became so large and so loyal. Fans did not all listen to Dolly for the same reason. Some loved the songwriting. Some loved her voice. Some loved her personality. Some admired her business achievements. Others were inspired by her generosity and charitable work. Many simply loved the feeling they got when they heard her sing. That is why no single memorial can possibly represent what Dolly meant to everyone. For one fan, leaving flowers may feel right. For another, writing a message may be the most personal gesture. For someone else, playing an old Dolly song at home may be enough. And for another person, donating to the Imagination Library may feel like the best way to say thank you. All of these reactions are different, but they share the same underlying emotion: gratitude for a life that mattered. As the first days of mourning continue, the question becomes what Dolly's legacy will look like years from now. Will the flowers be remembered? Probably not individually. Will every handwritten message be preserved? Maybe not. Will the candles remain? Eventually they will go out. But the reason people place them there will remain. The music will remain. The books will continue reaching children. The stories will continue being told. And the people who grew up with Dolly songs will continue introducing those songs to their own children and grandchildren. That is how a legacy becomes larger than a lifetime. A person passes away, but the things they created continue moving through the world. Dolly understood that power better than almost anyone. She spent more than 6 decades creating work that was designed to last. She wrote songs that could be performed long after their original recordings. She built charitable programs that could continue helping people without her physically being present. She created memories that could be revisited again and again. And now fans are proving just how deeply those memories have taken root. The gatherings in Los Angeles, the memorial book in Nashville, the flowers outside her home, the candles, the handwritten messages, and the countless private moments of fans listening to her music are all pieces of the same enormous farewell. There is no single place where everyone can gather because Dolly belonged to so many places at once. She belonged to Nashville. She belonged to country music. She belonged to Hollywood. She belonged to the families who listened to her records. She belonged to the children who received books through her literacy program.